Imagine you are standing outside on a warm summer evening. The air feels heavier than it once did. The sky glows with colors more vivid, almost strange, as if nature itself is trying to warn us of something. For generations, humanity has asked great questions about the future. Will we reach the stars? Will we discover life beyond Earth? Yet, perhaps the most urgent question of our age is much closer to home. It is not about distant galaxies or civilizations long vanished. It is about this fragile blue planet beneath our feet. What if Earth's climate reached a point of no return? This is not a fantasy. Scientists call it a tipping point, a threshold beyond which changes no longer happen slowly or predictably. Instead, they accelerate, becoming unstoppable, reshaping the planet in ways we may not fully understand until it is too late. Tonight, let us walk slowly, calmly, through this question. We will imagine the signs that tell us we are approaching the edge. We will explore how oceans, forests, and skies would transform. We will picture the challenges ordinary people might face, from finding food to finding a safe home. We will look to the past for lessons and finally consider whether there is still time to step back from that edge. This is not meant to frighten you, but to invite you into reflection. The story of climate is not only about disaster, it is also about choices, about resilience, and about the deep connection between all living things. So let us begin. Close your eyes if you wish. Listen as we travel into this unfolding future together. When we ask whether Earth might reach a point of no return, we don't begin in the distant future. We begin in the present, here and now. The clues are already around us, visible to anyone who looks closely. Consider the rising heat. Each year, records are broken. Summers feel longer, winters shorter. Cities that once enjoyed cool nights now find the air heavy, even after the sun disappears. Farmers notice the seasons no longer follow familiar rhythms. Flowers bloom too early, rains arrive too late. The oceans, too, are speaking. Glaciers that stood tall for thousands of years are retreating. The Arctic, once a frozen kingdom, is melting faster than scientists predicted. Entire ice sheets groan and crack, pouring fresh water into the seas. And with each melting year, the ocean swells higher, inch by inch, swallowing shorelines where people have lived for generations. Storms grow wilder. Hurricanes spin with greater fury, fueled by warmer waters. Rain falls not gently, but in sudden torrents, overwhelming rivers and streets. Elsewhere, the rain does not come at all, leaving cracked earth and empty wells. Families travel farther for water, carrying the weight of survival on their shoulders. Even the creatures of this world are telling the story. Birds migrate sooner, or not at all. Fish swim to cooler waters, leaving fishermen bewildered. Insects spread to places they were never found before, carrying with them new risks of disease. The balance of ecosystems trembles as if the earth itself is whispering, something is shifting. For many, these signs may feel distant. A headline in the news, a brief story about a storm or a flood in a place far away. But for others, they are immediate. A flooded home, a lost harvest, a vanished shoreline. The tipping point does not arrive in one single dramatic moment. It creeps quietly, steadily, until it is all around us. And yet, there is a paradox. These signs, while alarming, are still whispers compared to what may come. They are warnings at the edge of the forest, signals before the true storm. They remind us that the point of no return is not an abstract idea. It is a destination we are slowly walking toward, step by step, choice by choice. So let us look further ahead. If the Earth continued down this path, if these warnings went unanswered, what would our ecosystems, the lungs and lifeblood of this planet, look like on the other side of the tipping point? If the signs we see today are the whispers, then the collapse of ecosystems would be the echo that follows. Nature is built like a delicate web. Each strand is connected to another. Pull too hard on one, and the whole design begins to tear. At the point of no return, those strands begin to snap. Let us begin with the oceans. Covering more than 2/3 of our planet, they are the great regulators of climate, the lungs that absorb carbon, the cradles of life itself. Yet as the seas grow warmer and more acidic, entire habitats face destruction. Coral reefs, brilliant, colorful cities beneath the waves, begin to bleach, fade, and die. Once teeming with fish, turtles, and countless species, they transform into lifeless skeletons. And without the reefs, the chain reaction begins. Fish populations decline, predators lose their food, coastal communities, long dependent on fishing, lose their livelihoods. Millions of people are affected, not through sudden catastrophe, but through the slow unraveling of a food system built over centuries. Now imagine the forests. The Amazon, often called the lungs of the earth, may pass a tipping point where it can no longer sustain itself. Droughts grow longer, fires more frequent, trees that once released moisture into the air and created their own rainfall instead release carbon as they burn. What was once a mighty rainforest could shift into a dry savanna, its incredible diversity reduced to a shadow of what it was. And what of the Arctic tundra? Hidden beneath its frozen soil lies permafrost, ground that has remained frozen for thousands of years. Within it are vast reserves of methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. As the tundra thaws, these gases escape, accelerating warming even further. It is a feedback loop. Warmth releases more gas, which creates more warmth, and the cycle feeds itself without end. Even the smallest players in these ecosystems matter. Bees and other pollinators, so often overlooked, face collapse from rising heat, shifting seasons, and pesticide use. Yet without them, countless crops, from fruits to vegetables to nuts, would vanish. A silent crisis, hidden in the wings of tiny insects, could ripple out into empty shelves and hungry mouths. Ecosystems are not simply scenery, they are the stage, the actors, and the script of life itself. They provide the air we breathe, the food we eat, the stability of our climate. When they falter, we falter. When they collapse, humanity faces not just discomfort, but the unraveling of civilization as we know it. At the point of no return, these crises do not remain contained. They spread, linking with one another. The ocean influences the sky, the forest influences the rain, the thawing tundra influences the entire globe, and together they create a world where stability, the balance we have long depended upon, becomes a memory. But let us take this further. Beyond the collapse of ecosystems lies something deeply personal, the way climate shapes the lives we lead every single day. If the earth were to cross that invisible threshold, what would daily life feel like for ordinary people, for families in cities and villages around the world? If the signs we see today are the whispers, then the collapse of ecosystems would be the echo that follows. Nature is built like a delicate web. Each strand is connected to another. Pull too hard on one, and the whole design begins to tear. At the point of no return, those strands begin to snap. Let us begin with the oceans. Covering more than 2/3 of our planet, they are the great regulators of climate, the lungs that absorb carbon, the cradles of life itself. Yet as the seas grow warmer and more acidic, entire habitats face destruction. Coral reefs, brilliant, colorful cities beneath the waves, begin to bleach, fade, and die. Once teeming with fish, turtles, and countless species, they transform into lifeless skeletons. And without the reefs, the chain reaction begins. Fish populations decline, predators lose their food, coastal communities, long dependent on fishing, lose their livelihoods. Millions of people are affected, not through sudden catastrophe, but through the slow unraveling of a food system built over centuries. Now imagine the forests, the Amazon, often called the lungs of the earth, may pass a tipping point where it can no longer sustain itself. Droughts grow longer, fires more frequent, trees that once released moisture into the air and created their own rainfall instead release carbon as they burn. What was once a mighty rainforest could shift into a dry savanna, its incredible diversity reduced to a shadow of what it was. And what of the Arctic tundra? Hidden beneath its frozen soil lies permafrost, ground that has remained frozen for thousands of years. Within it are vast reserves of methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. As the tundra thaws, these gases escape, accelerating warming even further. It is a feedback loop. Warmth releases more gas, which creates more warmth, and the cycle feeds itself without end. Even the smallest players in these ecosystems matter. Bees and other pollinators, so often overlooked, face collapse from rising heat, shifting seasons, and pesticide use. Yet without them, countless crops, from fruits to vegetables to nuts, would vanish. A silent crisis, hidden in the wings of tiny insects, could ripple out into empty shelves and hungry mouths. Ecosystems are not simply scenery, they are the stage, the actors, and the script of life itself. They provide the air we breathe, the food we eat, the stability of our climate. When they falter, we falter. When they collapse, humanity faces not just discomfort, but the unraveling of civilization as we know it. At the point of no return, these crises do not remain contained. They spread, linking with one another. The ocean influences the sky. The forest influences the rain. The thawing tundra influences the entire globe. And together they create a world where stability, the balance we have long depended upon, becomes a memory. But let us take this further. Beyond the collapse of ecosystems lies something deeply personal, the way climate shapes the lives we lead every single day. If the Earth were to cross that invisible threshold, what would daily life feel like for ordinary people? For families in cities and villages around the world? There comes a moment in every story when change can no longer be undone. A glass falls, it shatters, and no matter how carefully you gather the pieces, it will never be whole again. The Earth's climate, too, has such a moment. Scientists call it a tipping point. We might call it the edge of the cliff. At first, the changes seem familiar. Heat waves, stronger storms, a glacier shrinking year by year. But then, slowly, quietly, the balance breaks. A forest that once grew back after fire no longer recovers. An ocean current that carried warmth across the globe weakens, then falters, disrupting weather patterns everywhere. A great ice sheet, heavy and ancient, collapses into the sea, raising oceans not by inches, but by feet. The point of no return is not marked by a single event, but by a cascade. One system tips, pulling another with it, until the world we once knew slips away like sand between fingers. Imagine the Arctic. Once white and glittering, it becomes blue water in summer. Without the reflective shield of ice, sunlight is absorbed rather than bounced back into space, accelerating warming across the globe. Imagine Greenland's ice sheet melting so quickly that seas rise fast enough to redraw coastlines within a single generation. Cities like Miami, Dhaka, Jakarta, and Venice are swallowed, not by distant centuries, but within the lifetimes of those alive today. The great ocean conveyor, currents that move like invisible rivers beneath the sea, may slow or stop. Without them, Europe could grow colder even as the rest of the planet burns. Monsoons may fail, starving crops across Asia. Rains may shift, deserts may expand, and entire regions may no longer be able to support the people who live there. This is not the apocalypse of sudden fire and brimstone. It is something stranger, a new equilibrium, but one hostile to the systems humanity has always depended upon. For thousands of years, our civilizations grew within the gentle cradle of a stable climate. Seasons came and went with rhythm. Rivers flowed predictably. The sky brought rains in time for the harvest. That rhythm breaks at the tipping point. The metronome of Earth's stability falls silent, and with it, the certainty we built our lives upon begins to crumble. People do not notice all at once. Some wake to flooded streets, others to empty fields, others still to skies filled with smoke. For each, the tipping point arrives in a different form, but collectively, humanity realizes it has stepped across a threshold. The old world is gone, and the new one is harsher, heavier, more uncertain. The question is not only what changes occur after this threshold, but what humanity does in response. Will we fracture, each nation turning inward to protect what little it has? Or will we adapt together, forging a new path in a world reshaped by forces greater than us? The point of no return is not simply about nature. It is about humanity's ability to remain human in the face of change. Once the Earth has crossed the threshold, the future of humanity becomes a story of adaptation. No longer can we rely on the steady rhythms of the past. Instead, survival depends on how quickly and creatively we can adjust to a world transformed. The first change is movement. As seas rise, coastlines vanish. Millions of people, entire nations and low-lying islands are forced to leave their homes. Climate refugees cross borders not by thousands, but by millions, seeking safety on higher ground. Cities far from the coast swell with new populations. Governments face difficult questions. Who will be welcomed? Who will be turned away? How do we build new homes when the old ones are gone? But migration is not only about water. Regions once fertile may dry into desert. Heat so intense that human bodies cannot survive outdoors for long could make parts of the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia nearly uninhabitable. Families who lived in these lands for generations may pack what they can carry and join the great migrations northward or upward into cooler highlands. Technology will shape this new era. Already, scientists explore crops that can survive with less water or tolerate higher heat. Vertical farms may rise inside cities, stacked like glowing towers, feeding millions without relying on uncertain fields. Desalination plants may turn oceans into drinking water, though at a heavy cost of energy. New forms of renewable energy, solar fields stretching like mirrors across deserts, wind farms turning above restless seas, may power the cities of the future. Yet adaptation is not equal. The wealthy may retreat into cooled, self-sustaining enclaves, while the poor face the harshest conditions outside. This division could grow sharper, a new kind of inequality not only of wealth but of climate safety itself. A child's chance of survival may depend less on talent or opportunity, and more on the latitude of their birthplace. Still, humanity has always been resourceful. We have crossed deserts, sailed oceans, and built homes on mountaintops. In this new world, some will build floating cities upon the water. Others will carve dwellings into cliffs or beneath the ground, where temperatures remain stable. Technology may even reach to the stars, as voices argue that perhaps the only true solution is to find another home beyond Earth. But even as we imagine this future, one truth remains. We are tied to this planet. Every breath we take, every drop of water we drink, every meal we eat is bound to Earth. No spacecraft, no floating city, no fortress can fully replace the embrace of the world that raised us. At the point of no return, the question for humanity is not only how we will survive, but how we will remain human. Will we cling to fear, building walls and hoarding resources, or will we choose cooperation, recognizing that only together can billions endure the storms ahead? The answers may determine not just whether humanity survives, but what kind of civilization emerges from the ashes of stability. A fractured world, harsh and divided, or a united one, scarred but resilient, finding strength in common struggle. To imagine our future, however, it helps to look backward. Humanity has faced climate challenges before. Civilizations have risen and fallen not only because of politics or wars, but because of droughts, floods, and changing skies. Perhaps in their stories we may find guidance for our own. Humanity has always lived in the shadow of climate. Long before machines and factories, the rise and fall of civilizations was tied to the rhythms of rain, sun, and soil. By looking at history, we uncover warnings, stories carved into stone and buried beneath desert sands. Consider the Maya civilization. For centuries, the Maya built great cities with towering pyramids and complex calendars, but beneath their achievements lay a fragile balance. Crops depended on seasonal rains. When drought struck, lasting not for months but for decades, fields withered, rivers shrank, hunger grew. Archaeologists believe that these relentless droughts weakened the great Maya cities, fueling conflict and eventually collapse. A brilliant civilization dimmed, not by conquest alone, but by the sky itself. Travel further back to Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, where humans first tamed rivers and built cities. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates was fertile, yet also unpredictable. Changes in rainfall and soil salinity eroded the foundations of kingdoms. Entire dynasties rose and fell as farmers struggled to keep the land alive. When the climate shifted, the empire's power shifted with it. Or consider the ancestral Puebloans of the American Southwest. They built intricate cliff dwellings, surviving in desert landscapes through careful farming and water storage. But when a long drought arrived, lasting more than half a century, their communities fractured, villages emptied, people scattered across the land, seeking survival elsewhere. History whispers a clear truth. When the climate changes beyond what people can endure, even the strongest societies stumble. Technology, culture, and power cannot stand forever against the absence of water or the persistence of heat. Yet there is also a lesson of resilience. Many people did not vanish, they adapted. Survivors of collapsed civilizations carried knowledge forward. They found new lands, new methods, new ways to live. Humanity endured, even if empires did not. Today, the scale is greater. Our civilization is global, linked by trade, technology, and communication. Unlike the Maya or Mesopotamians, we cannot simply migrate as one people to a new fertile valley. But the lesson is clear. Climate shapes destiny. Ignore it, and collapse follows. Respect it, and adaptation becomes possible. The past shows us that no civilization is immune. But it also shows us that human creativity and persistence can endure incredible trials. These stories are not just warnings. They are reminders that we too must decide how to face the challenges ahead. And so, as we reflect on history's echoes, we turn once more to our present moment, asking what choices remain for us now. Even as we imagine the world after the point of no return, we must remember the future is not yet written. The earth may be moving toward thresholds we cannot easily reverse, but the choices we make today still carry immense power. Each decision, every policy, every invention, every action shapes the trajectory of our planet. Reduce emissions and we may slow the warming. Protect forests and we preserve the lungs of the earth. Invest in clean energy and we may find a path toward a sustainable future. Individual actions matter too. The energy we consume, the food we eat, the resources we use, all ripple outward. A change in one household can influence a city, a region, even the world. It may seem small, even insignificant, but the sum of many small changes becomes monumental. Technology provides tools, but wisdom guides their use. Solar panels and wind turbines, desalination plants and vertical farms, carbon capture and electric vehicles. These innovations are instruments of hope. But without cooperation, without thoughtful planning, they cannot prevent the forces of climate from overwhelming us. Society itself must evolve. Borders, economies, and communities must learn to support each other, not just in prosperity, but in crisis. Climate change is not confined to a single nation or people. It is a challenge that crosses every line drawn on maps. Solidarity becomes survival. Empathy becomes strategy. Education is another choice, teaching new generations to respect nature, to understand the consequences of action and inaction, builds a society capable of long-term thinking. A child learning about the oceans today may grow into the scientist, the policymaker, or the activist who prevents disaster tomorrow. Perhaps the most important choice is perspective. We must shift from seeing the earth as a resource to be exploited to seeing it as a home to be cherished. A planet capable of sustaining life is rare, fragile, and precious. To preserve it, we must live with care, awareness, and humility. The tipping point may loom and the signs may be urgent, but at the same time, human ingenuity, courage, and cooperation still offer a chance. The future is a garden, not yet scorched, waiting for hands willing to tend it. As we consider these choices, we must also prepare ourselves for adaptation, for resilience, and for hope. Even in the darkest moments, a single act of care, a single innovation, or a single voice speaking truth can ripple outward, changing the course of history. Even as we imagine a world on the brink, there is always a small hope. Like a fragile seed buried in dry soil, the possibility of change waits quietly, ready to grow. Hope does not deny the challenges, it acknowledges them, yet persists. Across the globe, people are taking action. Communities restore wetlands that purify water and absorb floodwaters. Farmers plant trees alongside crops, creating living shields against erosion. Scientists develop crops that can thrive under extreme heat. Cities invest in green rooftops and renewable energy. Each effort may seem small, almost invisible, but together they form a network of resilience. Hope also lives in stories passed from generation to generation. The child who learns to care for a garden today may become the leader who transforms cities tomorrow. The voice that speaks truth can inspire millions. Actions like ripples in water reach farther than we imagine. And hope asks for patience. It understands that recovery is slow, that ecosystems take time to heal, that human society must adapt gradually. It is not dramatic or flashy. It is quiet, persistent, and enduring. Even in moments of despair, hope reminds us the earth is not yet beyond care. Choices we make now, however small, may tip the balance back toward life, toward stability, toward possibility. So we return finally to the question that began this journey. What if Earth's climate reached a point of no return? The answer is complex. It is not a single vision of doom, nor a simple story of survival. It is a tapestry woven from science, history, imagination, and choice. It is a reminder that humanity and the Earth are intertwined, and that each action matters. As you listen, consider the signs, the ecosystems, the daily lives, and the lessons of the past. Consider the choices we face today, the technology we can use, and the hope we can nurture. Imagine a world transformed, and then ask yourself, what part will I play in shaping it? Close your eyes, breathe. Imagine the Earth not as a distant planet, but as your home, fragile, resilient, and alive. Imagine that your actions, your care, your awareness can make a difference. This story does not end with catastrophe, nor with certainty. It ends with possibility. It ends with a quiet invitation to watch, to listen, to act, and to hope. And now, let the sound of the earth settle around you as night falls and the planet whispers its secrets, waiting for hands and hearts willing to protect it.